All right,
Thanks.
take it over.
Thank you. You can all hear me back there?
Yeah.
Yeah, wait till my wife is ready,
Yep.
and she's the boss. Okay. Thanks for coming. Welcome to Going, Gone. This is from my perspective. This is about the poisoning of the planet Earth. This is an environmentalist point of view. In my opinion, we're running on empty. We're adding fuel to the fire by dumping 40 gigatons of CO2 into the atmosphere every single year. We're amplifying the natural greenhouse effect, and we are responsible for the Earth the way it is today, although the Earth is currently warming up and we are coming out of an ice age. But there are consequences to our actions. No matter what we do, there's consequences. This planet really needs you to give a damn. And the people who disagree with this, and that's their opinion, I respect that, they claim that the Earth is going through a natural cycle, that it's not a result of human activity, and there's past warming periods in the past, and there has been. And they have natural factors like solar radiation or volcanic eruptions, although there aren't any that much today, are the periods of drivers of this change. So that we are not responsible, they say, is the opposite of the way I'm coming from. So in my opinion, it's time to be responsible, to own up, this is going way too fast, too soon. So, and even the Earth's orbital cycles can't explain this, the precision of how the Earth rotates, of how it's sometimes at a different angle than 23 degrees, and how far it is away from the sun. It moves a bit. This can't explain it either. So when we have people disagreeing with this point of view, an environmentalist point of view, they go like this and they scoff it off and they say, they dismiss it. They don't want these problems, specifically with CO2 and methane, they don't want it in their backyard. It's a hands-off. They don't want to live next door to environmental issues. So we have overloud scholarly debates that are pedantic, dry, and esoteric about this. So some people claim from the environmentalist point of view is not a good thing because it's a con job, it's a deception, it's doom and gloom, it's a hoax, it's fake news, alternate facts, misinformation, and is inaccurate. So we have armchair philosophers that pontificate. Sorry, lost track on this. And in my opinion, we have disrespected the natural world for the last. We really have disrespected the natural world. This concerns all within the last 50 years. Our problems are man-made, and therefore they can be solved by man. So this will be a personal journey that I'm going to take you on. However, this will be more personal as it goes along. So we'll get to the point. This is the Aral Sea in Kazakhstan. The Aral Sea is 26,300 miles big, but it's decreased to 10% of its original size and now looks like this. This is a man-made problem because of overuse and poor water management. The Soviets, or the Russians actually, have taken the water and used it to irrigate cotton fields. Okay, so there's a price for that. And it looks like this. And because there's not that much sea left, the salt from it then blows into other areas along with sand, ruins crops, doesn't do good for livestock, and looks like this, and can cause problems like this in the city, and even worse, like this with these salt storms that we have. However, this just made the news. The Aral Sea is making a comeback. It's because of the release of water from the dams to make it look like this. And this is taking things to the point of brinkmanship, going all the way as far as you can and then taking it the other way. So I will show you silver linings as we go along. This is the Dead Sea. Maybe some of you have been there. It's between Israel and Jordan. It's a major tourist area because it's so unique. Jordan is millions of dollars from this, but over time it's been shrinking. It used to be 1,000 square miles, now it's 410 square miles. It used to look like this 100 years ago, and is looking like this and like this because of evaporation and upstream diversions. So the Dead Sea has receded to make it look like this right now. A shadow of what once was, and when it recedes, it leaves sinkholes. In Iran, Tehran is going through a severe water shortage, enough to make the headlines, enough to make them want to and think about evacuate the city because of water, they're in a drought, and their dams are just 10% in capacity of what they should be. This is because of their laws that they made that 90% of its water is used on low yield agriculture because it stipulates that most of it has to be produced locally. They don't import the food, they grow it to be self-sufficient, but it takes the water away. So when they have this, they've lost this many kilometers. That's the size, did my math, the size of a swimming pool, a mile square, but 9 miles high of water. Over the last 23 years, their dams are down to this, and it should be up to this in Iran and Tehran. Also in Iran is Lake Urmia, the world's largest salt lake. This has been decreasing over time to what it looks like now. This is because all the green dots here are dams going into it, and there's been wells trying to get the water that's good to drink underneath it. There's an aquifer. So it's lost 5,000 square miles. And it looks like this. This is called hydropolitics, when you play games with water. Take it to the brink of collapse, like this is what salt water turns when it gets, it starts to evaporate, kind of a reddish purple color. But let's do something local because you're more interested in that because it relates to us. Great Salt Lake, my family and I were on vacation in 1998, and it was gorgeous there, but it's lost 4 million tons of water and looks like this now. It's lost 73% of its water. In the areas where it's lost, it's releasing methane because it used to be covered up by water. So it used to be 3,300 square miles. It looked like Lake Michigan when we were in it for a couple days. And then it shrunk to 950 square miles because of evaporation, because the West is going through a major drought. Mexico City is running out of water and has to have places like this. Its aquifers are low, its reservoirs are low, and it's running out of water for a city of 9 million. They just can't support it with this. This has made the news too. All these headlines I didn't make on my computer. I got this really from the net news, from Google the last couple months, or from radio spots on NPR. So I'm not making any of these things up. They're direct from the headlines. This is Kabul, Afghanistan. There's 4 million people. It also has a severe water shortage because there's not that much water in the area, and there's too many people. So there's a water scarcity in Kabul. Well, that's far away. How about something closer? Let's talk about the Colorado River. We all know there's been a drought for 20 years out west, and we all know about the problems managing water on this river. It runs in the North Rockies and goes for 1,400 miles and empties into the Gulf of California. It's 1,400 miles long. And when it ends as a trickle, and that's fine to use the water for human use. That's what it's for. That's what the West needs out there. So, how does water diverted out there? Well, it's diverted into the upper basin and the lower basin. The upper basin has Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. That's one basin, and that gets 7.5 million acre feet a year of water. And the lower basin, Nevada, California, get another 7.5 million. In other words, there's 15 million acre feet of water, and it's divided between the states. And so it goes something like this. Colorado in the upper basin gets 51%, Utah gets 23%, in the lower basin, Arizona gets 37%, California gets 58%, and these numbers do add up to 15 trillion, or 15 billion, whatever. And it's about water management. So there's a silver lining in this. Because there's less water, the city of Las Vegas has a water patrol. And they've issued 500,000 tickets in the last couple decades to find anybody having water running from their property when they water their lawn, like we have out here in the villages. And they saved 30% doing this. Now, Lake Mead is not running out of water. I'm not going to be Mr. Doom and Gloom about that, but it's at 30% full. You can see the bathtub rings here. So if you have conservation and people actually enforcement, then things work. That's the issue, is practicality, how it works. And the drought out here, and this is recent, this can't be any more recent than this, is you can see the drought areas in New Mexico that we'll get to in a minute, Colorado, out in the west. It may be marching toward the Midwest because they, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio, are in a severe drought. This soybean farmer that we passed taking our son out to our school in Indiana, his crop is inconsistent because of this kind of drought. So it's marching it maybe out to the east. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, the Rio Grande out there, a major river, is running dry because there's water down to Texas that they have to give it, and it's so dry. It runs right through Albuquerque. You shouldn't be able to walk across it, and now you can in these areas here. How they farm down there is they have these canals that are at risk right now of these aqueducts down there that irrigate these particular areas. That's how they get water down in southern New Mexico. We're going to go into space right now, and there's 2 CO2 monitors that have been turned off by the current administration. One is on the space station right here, CO2 monitor, and this one orbits the Earth is being turned off. We now have ignorance is bliss and the redacted information, so we have to get any information now from the ESA, who has satellites that measure this. Speaking of the space station, it's divided into 2 parts, an American part and a Soviet part, Russian part, excuse me. And here's the Russian part right here, with these Russian cosmonauts, brave men. And now, but they want to pull out. They want to pull out of the space station by 27. They want to do this, and they want to make a new space station and be up there by 32 at a much higher orbit, because they want to visit they think the Arctic Ocean, the ice on top of it, which is 10 to 13 feet thick, will eventually melt away. And when that happens, they can plot out routes to go across it, plus drill for oil and gas, which is what Russia mainly does to make its money. Because the Arctic Ocean, the ice on top of it, is reduced by nearly 50%. This is about the albedo effect. When the sun shines on the surface of ice, or on snow, it reflects back up into the atmosphere. It reflects away from the Earth. But when it is absorbed by the ocean, the sunlight, it makes it worse for the ice to accumulate. Makes it worse, and the ice just goes away. It's a self-defeating prospect here. So it actually heats up the ocean when the ice goes away because it absorbs the sunlight. So I don't know what year this is going to go, but it's melting real quick. Let's look at this. The Arctic Sea has what looks like in 2000. Here it is in 2022. It's thinning, and it's lost the area of 2 Texases. You see extent has gone down, a then and a now, the western part of it being open. And yes, the Arctic Sea has, in the past, being the devil's advocate, has retreated thousands of years ago. We live in the Holocene era, which is the last 12,000 years, an interglacial period. And there's been spots where it's been colder and warmer and colder, and right now we are in a warming period. It's true it has happened in the past. I'd rather be straight with you and take the positions like this. We're going to move on to ice. These are the gigatons that have lost in different areas of the Iceland, what we were in, which I'll get to. Svalbard, Norway, which is an archipelago of islands, in Greenland, which we were in the Andes in Canada. These are the gigatons that they have lost. Let's go into this. This is the land ice that has been lost in the last 25 years or 30 years like this. It's decreased significantly with glaciers in Greenland and Antarctica. This is the poster child of all glaciers. This is the Mendenhall Glacier in eastern Alaska. It has retreated 600 football fields in the last 8 years. But tourism alone accounts for $1.5 billion to Alaska's economy from cruise ships. We all know people have gone on Alaskan cruise ships. They're very popular. But everybody wants to see this. Nobody wants to see this. And this loses money because people don't want to come anymore. Nor they might not want to come to Glacial National Park where the Jackson Glacier looked like in 1911 and it looks like today. It's melting twice as fast. You say, who cares about that? Well, glaciers, what they do is they wear down mountains. This is the natural thing the glaciers do. They scour them, they bring the minerals down, and they do it at a rate that's reasonable. This is not reasonable, and we're just going to end up with a glacial moraine right here, which is a big puddle. And that's what's going on in Glacier National Park. Let's go into Europe, in Switzerland. This is the Stein Glacier. It used to look like this, and then now it looks like this. It's lost another 600 meters. Another stream is coming out of it, another stream here into a big moraine right here. If you're farming right here or have farm animals, this is not good for this area at all. There's just too much water. Swiss glaciers have lost half their total volume since the early 30s. They've lost 1/4 of its ice mass in the past decade, a then and a now. Or this couple that came to see the Rhone Glacier, the start of it, in Switzerland. They came here, 1 year, 15 years later, they came to the exact same spot, and now it's another puddle. And everybody wants to see something like this. How they measure this is they use pink dye, and how much of it comes out in a couple minutes, and that's how they measure it. Europe has lost more than 1,000 small glaciers, and the ice has an impact on tourism. They're talking about hydropower. Having too much water in is not good either for the dams, and as well as agriculture. No one wants to be flooded out with too much water coming in. This is a glacier in Peru in 78, and now the same thing that we see. Or we were in Iceland in June. We did not see stuff like this, we mainly saw waterfalls. But this glacier, I can't pronounce it, was retreated 7 football fields in just about 8 years, like this, like this. This is in Svalbard, which is an archipelago of islands owned by Norway, between Norway and Iceland and Greenland. It used to look like this in 39, in 02, and 24. We were not taken to this though. And this is Allison in Svalbard. Used to look like this in 67. Here it is in 24. As you can see, it lost most of its muscle. The retreat, we were in the Arctic Circle, crossed it a number of times, but we did not see this, but this is the retreat of what's going on in the last years. In Allison in 66, here it is in 24, the same person, the same thing, and you can see the retreat. Well, how about let's go to India, where the Gangetari Glacier is, which feeds the rivers, many of them in India. It used to be way up here and has retreated back this far. This was the start of the whole glacier right here where the water would come out and then freeze. And then here it is, there are before and after of this major glacier in India. This is the Chukchi Sea, it's hard to pronounce, between Alaska and Russia. The ice on top of it, which is sea ice, has been retreating in the past to go back and back. On the Russian side, tens of thousands of walruses live here. And they come out to sea, and they need a place to rest on the water, but they have to keep going further out because the sea ice is melting. And they're congregating on shore earlier than ever. This is our picture of walruses in the Arctic. That's exactly how they rest on ice that we took. And they give birth on ice, so they have to swim further and further out just for the females to give birth. And there's nothing for them to eat on land. They go out in the water and do this. And they have to have somewhere to rest. Nepal has lost 1/3 of its ice in the last 30 years. Nepal is between south of China and north of India, the rooftop of the world, and has water scarcity now because there's too much water coming out. Let's take a look at this. Pakistan is home to 13,000 glaciers. Pakistan is between India and Iran right here. And this was a National Geographic kind of shot. And it's reduced to this, a then and a now. But its ice water is for Pakistan. It's 220 million people that depend on this, not coming out so fast, but coming out more at a graduated rate. The Balchoro Glacier is the longest glacier in the world. It's 39 miles long. I don't know what's happening with this glacier, but I do know that there's something behind Pakistan's repeated floods, melting glaciers, and depleted forests, because Pakistan has vanishing ice and is melting faster than anticipated, and catastrophic rains are coming because a warmer atmosphere holds more moisture and is devastating communities. Let's take a look at this. A 1-year loss of ice in a cube is about the size of Mount Blanc, about 14,000 feet tall in Europe. But a 10-year loss is 43,000 miles tall and much wider than and taller than Mount Everest, 1.5 times the size of Mount Everest. So again, 06 to 04, and went from 05, then and now to 23. So the devastating floods in Pakistan in 2010 from glacier melt and devastating rains killed 1,700 people and caused $15 billion in damage. You say that's far away, right? It is. Well, how about somewhere closer in Kentucky? The reason why there's more floods in Kentucky, the land's been raped. It has not been reclaimed, it's been strip mined, and the trees and the shrubs and the topsoil is not there to absorb the rain. So you've heard of 100-year floods? That should be eliminated from the vocabulary. They come in Kentucky at least once every 40 years, one in 37, one in 77, and in 22 that led to these kind of deaths. This is a man-made problem. We are disrespecting our environment. No one wants to live near this. And what's with so many 1,000-year floods? We've had 3 of them in the Southwest in a row. And this is the most famous one. This happened this summer, as you know, in Camp Mystic, with by the Guadalupe River. And these foothills all here act like a funnel and bring the water in. And when it gets 7 or 8 inches of rain, it's catastrophic. It's Noah's Ark City. And this is where 127 people died, all because they lived too close to the campsites are too close to the river as well as homes. This is about arrogance. This is conceit and arrogance. The city of Tokyo has a better idea. Why not just put things underground in these vast chambers that hold tens of millions of gallons of water, so in case they have a flood from whatever situation, a typhoon or a catastrophic rains, it's able to hold the water as well as these long 4-mile long tunnels. So it costs them this amount of money to build this, but that's planning for the future. That's how to solve the problem. They receive conceit and greed in North Carolina's Outer Banks. When you build too close to the ocean, no matter what time period you're building in, now or 100 years before or after, it's going to fall into the water. But the people who build these things, they want the $25,000 they can get by renting this out at $2,000 a pop for a week, these kind of things, and they can make $250,000. But the homes are right by the water, so there 12 of them have fallen in. This is greed and conceit. Yes, this made the headlines. Campfire in Paradise, California consumed 240 square miles. That's 5 times the size of the villages, and destroyed 18,000 homes, 85 facilities in Northern California. Yet they still want to come back and build here. And the Forest Service today has lost 38% of its ability and money to fight fires. It's been taken away by DOJ cuts. They can't fight fires anymore, but the Park Service says, run by the government, says, that's enough for you, California. You'll have enough. No, it isn't. We're going to move on here to the AMOC, the Atlantic Ocean's Conveyor Belt. It's the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. Now, these are not just ribbons on the map. These are underwater rivers that are 620 miles wide, the size of the width of 2 Floridas. And they take water, and they take the warm water from the tropics and bring it up north where it cools, and it comes back down into a circulating situation that makes our weather patterns. This has been declining over the past number of years. Actually, the Gulf Stream that comes by the United States here goes off into the Atlantic and is actually to warm up Europe. This is why it's so beautiful and so nice to visit Spain, Portugal, Italy. It's gorgeous out there because of the weather that this has been doing. Well, we think the AMOC might collapse, but not as early as 2035. I think that's doom and gloom, but it's starting to decay. Enough so that it's like this. This extra fresh water reduces the sinking of the cooling water. Less sinking in the North Atlantic means a reduction in how much warm water is dragged up from the tropics, weakening the circulation. There's too much regular fresh water coming in from the ice melt. Enough so to make Iceland on alert for this, as it's acting rather strange. We get this information from looking at some clamshells that will live very long, clams that live very long in their shells, and we can see the metrics behind that. So this is causing, this AMOC is behaving strangely and is causing extreme weather events, particularly in Europe. So the sea level is rising with ice, the warming, and the thermal expansion, which is in response to seawater expanding as a result of the sea level rising, because it gets warmer, it expands. 80% of coral systems across countries are affected by extreme ocean temperature. This is what happens to coral when it dies. It just turns into rubble. Coral reefs support 1/4 of all marine species, and they sustain the jobs of millions of people around the world. They fish in it, give tourism, people come to see this, as well as what's going on is because of the carbon dioxide is being dumped into the oceans. Well, carbon dioxide is being absorbed by the oceans, and it becomes, the water CO2 becomes carbonic acid, making the water, instead of 7 neutral, it's making it a bit about like 6, a bit acidic. This means the coral can't grow at the regular rate as fast as they could. This is from thermal stress and strain. Instead of growing at 4 to 5 millimeters a year, it'll grow at 1. So we're seeing coastal towns like Cape Coral with sea level rise that could be vanished off the map or taken off the map because the sea levels are rising for this. Now, make this personal, we went to the Great Barrier Reef there in February. It's right here, you can see this from space. And it's the world's largest living structure. It is 1,400 miles long because it's of 2,900 individual reefs and 900 islands. Half of this now has been bleached and turned into rubble. But we did not see that. We snorkeled in other places. The Great Barrier Reef is really a 500 million years old, and the last structure on it grew from 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. But in the last 50 years, it has lost half of it. And that's in 50 years. We have no metrics that go way back in the day that goes back just for 50 years. We have metrics that go back at thousands of years, but not this rate, this fast, this soon, and graphs for it. So what should look like this is looking like this because of increased temperature and acidity, and we've lost half the coral reefs. And what happens is the algae that lives on the coral have a symbiotic relationship, the coral and the algae. And they need to be algae needs to be at the right temperature and acidity, and when it isn't, the coral, without algae, the coral loses its major source of food and turns white and then crumbles. But in Australia alone, it accounts for 64,000 jobs for the Great Barrier Reef. And it contributes this amount of money. And they're nuts in Australia about anything. You take your ship out there, they'll scrape the bottom of it to get any kind of invasive species at it before they get to the Australian port or New Zealand. The same thing if you take a banana or any kind of fruit or nuts on the mainland, you'll get fined. Thank you for doing this. And this was a severe problem. They don't want anything messing up their beautiful ecosystem because there's only one like that in the world. And with their unique animals, they can back that up. So that's what this is what's causing here. It isn't just being pretty and seeing pretty coral reefs. It's about marine life living on them. It's about jobs. However, to be the devil's advocate, and I'm going to be straight and honest with you, some of this happened in the past. In the past, the Strait of Gibraltar closed up. Bob, has this been turned off?
Yeah, that's pretty well.
It has been. I'm sorry. Pardon me. back in the day, 5 million years ago, the Strait of Gibraltar was closed off due to tectonic activity. And as a result of that, there's all these lakes that happened, salt lakes that occurred in the Mediterranean Sea. And it turned into a bunch of dead salt lakes all here. However, it did refill up, but this is what happened when, so things have changed. And it used to look like this, being closed up, but now it looks like this because the Strait of Gibraltar is going on. So things like this did happen in the past, but we see no, well, tectonic activity goes at a very slow rate, but there's no things like this happening right now on Earth, and there's no giant volcanic eruptions going on either, being responsible for this kind of thing. And as being the devil's advocate, the Antarctic ice has rebounded a bit in the past, but not in the Arctic. So this has done better, but not in the Arctic. And what about that ozone layer? You might remember that back in the day, because everybody on the planet did something about this. That is, we got rid of the CFCs, the chlorofluorocarbons, from aerosols, refrigerants, and foams. We able to reduce this, and it's been the 5th smallest since 1992. That's a success story because we did something about it. And if it takes that kind of work, then it can work for the planet. I'm going to move now to different things. I, myself, maybe you, have a closet full of clothes you really don't need. This is called fast fashion. So what happens to this is it gets accumulated, and other countries buy it for secondhand clothes, and then they're just tossed in the desert. We're going to take a look at this. This is about overconsumption of clothes throughout the world. Where do the clothes go that we have? Well, for a lot of places, they're bought by Chile and taken to the Atacama Desert, where it's so dry there, it hasn't rained for 3 years, and it's put in these vast trash piles like this that go on for thousands of acres. And you can see this from space because they get in 11 million garments a week, and these kind of garments that they don't know what to do with, so they put them there. This is about impact of fashion on our world, and you can see this from space. It's garbage bags like this of clothes. In Bangladesh, it's even worse. Where there should be water, they've thrown clothes and other items into rivers because they don't have recycling projects like we do. Or do they have any kind of situation to help clean up like this? In Bangladesh, which is south in India. The rivers are dying out there because of this. So this is because of what they call fast fashion. Clothes are just dumped out here, and any kind of trash is also. So where they make the shirts in Bangladesh is they dump anything else in there, in the river system right here. So it looks like this. What happens with our clothes, specifically, is they're bought by Kenya. And Kenya use them for secondhand clothes for their citizens there. And what's left over is taken to the Nairobi River area and just dumped. That's where you put things in rivers, because everybody thinks the rivers are going to take them away and take them somewhere else out of sight. So Kenya can become the ground zero for this in Euro trash. Where does European people put their clothes? They give them to Kenya also. So they got 37 million items of plastic clothing in 2021 alone. In other areas, we take clothes and electronics to Accra, which is the capital of Ghana on the west coast of Africa. And how this happens is you want to give things to charity, right? Everybody likes doing that. That makes sense. I would too. So what happens is they give the shirts to charity, but charity shops only sell 20% of the donated clothes. Unsold donations are sold to aggregators, ship it up in bales, and send it to these areas. And they pay $120 to $200 a bale, and then they sell what they can. What isn't sold, they use as waste, and it's collected by the city and then dumped and put into textile waste flows into rivers and the sea and washes on the beaches. So what looks like this, a tsunami of clothes in Accra and other places like this. This is disgusting.
It is.
A lot of countries do not have the facilities to clean up or to recycle like we have. So they just a big dump. There's too much junk in your trunk. 50% of the people in the world have not made a phone call. 50% of the world lives much like this. In like Kenya, particularly Tanzania, and other Somalia, other world countries like this. So what happens to electronics? Oh, we go to Europe. They're very sophisticated out there. But where do they dump their electronics? They dump it in Accra right here. And Accra buys them, by the way. And I'm not clear for what reason, but they have them in vast junkyards that are hundreds and hundreds of acres of junk, and people scrounge through them to try and find bits of copper, bits of aluminum, so they can resell it. Let's go on to somewhere closer. We have garbage lasagnas in the United States. They're not covered by soil. So they admit about the emissions of 23 million cars with methane, which is 6 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. So, remember I talked about the people that give these 2 lectures. They could be anywhere, the Villages, Boston, Phoenix. Well, would they ever consider living by here? That is, with the methane and carbon dioxide? After all, if carbon dioxide and methane, according to these people, are not contributing to the health, are not contributing to climate change, then why not just live here? Let's take a look at Aliso Canyon. 2015, for 112 days, there was a blowout. It sent out 100,000 tons of methane in the San Fernando Valley. This resulted in pregnant women there giving birth weight that were 45 to 100% higher than normal. No one wants to have a child that has low birth weight at all. This can lead to problems like breathing difficulties and inflammation and all kinds of serious problems because of this. But no one would want to live here. But then people say, oh, I want to live where it's really comfortable. But no one would ever want to live by these emissions, nor would anybody want to live by here, with methane outages going on here with gas turbines and XAIs with supercomputers. So where does XAI get its information from? From centers like this in Memphis. This one right here has turbines that produce about 1,500 tons a year of methane. But no one would want to live here because it's not good for our earth and therefore not good for our people. But no one would want to live here. Let's take a look at these data centers that are around. This is Meta's massive $30 billion data center in North Louisiana in Richland Parish. It's called Hyperion Data Center. They are currently building it. It will take 5 years to build. It is 1,700 fields in size for the massive computers that they would need, for the storage units. It's 4 million square feet and comprises 2,200 acres. It will use enough energy to the output of whatever Hoover Dam puts out, it will use that kind of energy. So the state of Louisiana has to give them more energy for this. Who pays for that? The customers of Louisiana. So they're trying to skimp and save on their electricity, but this consumes quite a bit of it. This would be the largest data center. Okay, so there's one. How about other ones? These are the QTS data centers. This one's in Fayetteville. And there are 100 of these kind of data centers that look like this, huge warehouses, Amazon style, of servers here. Gone are the days when we have seen a movie where there's a server in an office complex and somebody gets in and breaks in and does something. They look like this now in sizes like this, though they're all not that big. This is, there are 100 of these centers in Georgia. Governor Kemp wants to have them and they're good for the economy. Yes, they do produce jobs. Yes, they take an awful lot of energy. Georgia Power has asked for a 38% increase in output for these 100 centers in Georgia because land is cheap, but they need the energy. We're going to focus on Ashburn, Virginia, in the Virginia area right here with these. In the Virginia area, there's Haymarket, town of Haymarket, where the Amazon Web Services has its data center there. In villages like this, but right behind it is this. I do not know how they're powered, but either way, they take a tremendous amount of energy, and no one would want to live like this. Would you want to live like that? I would. Too much. So there's 151 data centers alone in Ashburn, Virginia. This is where the data centers are. And there's a data center alley that runs through much of Virginia. And this is what's caused an energy home increase of billions and billions of dollars to run this. So these are all the data centers that are going on. The ones in Florida here, there's only one in Orlando. Not that big of a deal, but obviously where mega cities are out here in the east and in the Midwest and in South Texas. Take a look at the data center in Reno, Nevada, which is on the western part of Nevada. And they have the Citadel, though. They're making this. I don't understand or can comprehend 7 million square feet. That's thousands of football fields big. It's just enormous. And this is what it will take. They're building this for data centers, the AI revolution that is now happening as we speak. So they're thirsty data centers. You know, Nevada only gets 10 inches of rain a year, 10. So I don't know where they're going to get the water to be able to do this. Is there a sound out there? Yeah. Maybe we should close the door. I don't know. Thank you. Thank you. 7 billion gallons a year. It's recycled water that runs on a loop out there. So Apple, Google, Microsoft, Switch, and Vantage data centers, thank you, have these data center projects out there. And this is taking, land is cheap out there, but it's taking enormous amounts of energy and water to be able to supply this. This is all for AI.
Why don't they use any solar?
Well, we'll get to your questions afterwards, but solar, I'm going to get into that actually, why they don't. I'm going to answer that question actually, because why don't they use solar was explained. One thing is that we don't want us to buy them from China anymore, and China's a major supplier of them, and they cost too much in the United States. And some of them don't work, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So, moving on. This is garbage again. So if you go to the highest place on Earth, there's garbage at the top of it, on top of Mount Everest. There's been over 10,000 people that have gone up, and they leave their garbage at the top. There's 250 dead bodies on Mount Everest. Top of the world into a garbage can in Nepal. Or if you go in the middle of it, like Niagara Falls, where it should be the most gorgeous place in America, there's a heaping trash there. Or if you go to the lowest place on the planet, which is the Marianas Trench in the Western Pacific by the Philippines, you'll find a plastic bag at 36,000 feet deep. This is what's happening now. The EPA is now a joke, and they have no bite to it at all. There's been rollback of forever chemicals. Forever chemicals, there used to be in previous administrations a stoppage of this. Forever chemicals get into your water system. They are mainly from to make products like water, grease, and stain resistant. The most thing you have in your house would be called Teflon about this. They have water resistant clothes and non-stick cookware. And there are sites that are contaminating where people live, 172 million people, and over 9,500 sites where these forever chemicals are accumulating, because the EPA wants to roll all this back. It has no bite to it. Yet, we've had environmental films like, Hollywood films like Civil Action, Dark Waters, that specifically address the DuPont Teflon scandal and resulting lawsuits from that, as well as Aaron Brockovich. And the city of Tampa was so proud a few years ago to have a water treatment tank to remove these kind of chemicals, but now it's okay to have them in the waters and they affect you directly. We're going to talk right now about plastic pollution. Right now there's 12 tons of plastic in the ocean. Only 10% of it gets recycled and some of it gets burned. Much of it is in landfills, and it gets its way into oceans and degrades over time through photosynthesis. No, degrades over time through radiation from the sun and breaks up into small particles. This bottle will break up into 240,000 pieces of plastic over time in the ocean. And this is called microplastics. And yes, it's inside you. And this is the impact on human health. It has all these systems. It mainly impacts the lower part of you, by the way. It's in yourself, your kids, and your grandchildren, microplastics. And this is the source of it, from clothes down to oil, down to roads. And the oceans are filled with it. They mainly collect these kind of garbage in the oceans in gyres that run in circular patterns. And there's trillions of pieces in them in the North Atlantic, the Mediterranean Sea, the Indian Ocean, the South Pacific, and they weigh a total of almost 300,000 tons of this garbage in the water. And every day, 2,000 garbage trucks worth of plastic are dumped into ocean, rivers, and lakes per day. A lot of countries don't have what we have. And it gets into the water system. Into gyres. This is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Now, our boat that we were on, our trip, ran from Los Angeles to Hawaii in the North Pacific, and then down to Australia. But we saw none of these garbage patches here. But they accumulate like this, like this. This is the oil that it takes to make 1 gallon, not 1 gallon, 1 liter of bottle. 1 liter of bottle takes about a quart of oil to make with transportation and production. And it breaks down to these small pieces. So in essence, you really have oil inside you in microplastics. And they occur in these gyres in the North Pacific. They run in circular patterns, and the accumulation the plastic pollution is in the center where there's no movement. Indian Ocean in the South Pacific, in the North Pacific. And again, it looks like this in the north. And these gyres run in patterns, circular patterns like this. So what goes around comes around. That's in the ocean. But what about freshwater streams? Yes, this is just recent. In the Snake River that runs in Washington and into Canada, there are microplastics in the fish that they found in freshwater streams. So it's in all of us. It's in your fish, the shellfish, and in your rice, which is growing in water. This is getting more personal. We went to many beaches on our trip, and one of them we saw, this is the worst one, was the Cape Verde Islands, just west of Africa. Actually, Spain owns them, and we saw this plastic pollution right here. Actually, what you're seeing is this. This is fishing line, and it comes out like this. This is just pounds and pounds of fishing line on the beaches. This is so bad in Cape Verde Islands that they now have a ban on single-use plastic items. And because it lasts for 600 years, this doesn't degrade for 600 years in the water. So microplastics are in everything, and 14 million tons end up in the ocean every year. It gets into fish, and it gets into us. Same thing with, where do we store waste? Well, the Navy and the Army has stored waste in barrels not too far from Los Angeles. One day they'll decay and give off this, of these still impacting our forests off the ocean. 25,000 barrels of toxic waste are off Los Angeles area, looking like this. So, talking about fish, well, what about fish? We've overfished the oceans also, to the point of being 10%, at most species, a level of 10%. We went to a talk on our ship that we went on, and they talked about the cod industry. This is a direct result, not of pollution, but of overfishing, having cod that was overfished so much in around late 60s that it dropped down so much, almost down to zero. Because we overfished so much the cod, which is important in Norway, Scandinavian areas, part of their diet, they lost 40,000 people lost their jobs, and it's been decimated ever since. They can't recover. So fish can't recover either because of what we did on man-made problem. We're going to move on to tropical forests, and forests right now, obviously the largest one is the Amazon rainforest, which gives 20% of its oxygen to us, and in the Congo Basin and in Malaysia. Global deforestation has been devastating. We lose 2,400 trees are cut down each minute throughout the world. In the United States, we lose 36 million trees annually, and most of our virgin forests now are gone. So I looked it up, this is what I did online. So Walmart, I always see these parking lots, how many Walmart parking lots are there? Well, enough to have 150,000 acres of land, that's 1/6 the size of Rhode Island. Who has the most forest? Well, obviously Russia does with the conifer forest in the north and Siberia, as well as Brazil and Canada. So we used to have 6 trillion trees in the world. Now it's been cut in half to 3 trillion. They are cut down at the rate of every day of 42 million every day, and the rainforests have been impacted by this. So this, again, is personal. This was outside our hotel in Sri Lanka. This is a palm oil plantation. And forests were cut down for this in Sri Lanka. And there's no diversity at all in these forests, all because it's one single plant that grows. Palm oil has been, this is another shot that we took on our way out to some kind of a excursion out in Sri Lanka. They have many of these kind of forests there. They're not that large, maybe a couple hundred acres, but the size of 2 Floridas have been cut. Forests the size of 2 Floridas have been cut down for these palm oil plantations to make cooking oil for a growing world. So this is the size of what's been going on. Palm oil plantations have been on the increase, and obviously they take away needed forests for a lot of wonderful animals like orangutans, etc. So these only last 25 to 30 years, and then they have to be recut down again and replanted. Nothing else can grow in these areas, or no other animals will want to live in them. Who has the most rainforest? Obviously Brazil does, and we were in Malaysia looking at this recently. And Brazil has lost about 20% of its forest, mainly in the south right here. This is the world's lungs, is Brazil, because the rainforest gives the world 20% of its oxygen, 1/5 of it. Yet we're cutting this down. Actually, it ends up then as cattle pasture. 62% of that rainforest is used as cattle pasture. Just in January this year alone, Brazil shipped 197 million pounds of beef to the United States because what used to be rainforest now looks like this to grow cattle, to make money. And they also grow soybeans in Brazil that they sell to China. And it's the world's largest producer of soybeans. So what was once virgin forest look like this, these kind of soybeans. We are in the middle of the world's 6th great extinction right now. The last extinction happened when the dinosaurs went away, supposedly an asteroid 66 million years ago. The one before that was in the Permian Triassic extinction 200 million years ago. We've lost 100 or 200 species every day go extinct, mainly of insects, but we've lost mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish. I'm going to ask you a direct question. When was the last time you saw a butterfly out here in the villages? Maybe in front of a rec center with some pretty flowers, but they don't exist out here. And so we are responsible for this, and at a rate that's we have is 1,000 to 10,000 times higher than any other rate in history. And I'm going to talk about the villages since we all live out here and make this more of a personal thing to all of us. Villages composes of 57 square miles of 57 square miles of land. This is about overbuilding, and there's no trees anywhere here. This is Aviary Rec Center, which is named for eagles that used to live in the area. There are no eagles because there's no wildlife for them to hunt. If I sound a bit bitter and sarcastic, yeah, I've lived here for 10 years and I'd like to see it better. So this is the villages here. Every single week for the last 3 years, I ride my bike down Megason Road all the way to the end and go by Sawgrass Grove, where they're building things right here. Saw them build this. There's no sawgrass here. I don't know why they call it, because it's associated with wetlands. There's nothing wet at all out here in the new lands they're building. And this has been terraformed, and it was so hot in this parking lot that they have here that I fried an egg this summer. I took an egg out there and fried an egg in the parking lot. So this is an overkill, in my opinion, an obscenity. We don't really need 980 holes of golf to do this. This is over, this is just way too much, there's not even a tree in here. We'd like to see some trees. If they're gonna build, fine. Yes, that is progress, yes. Have a vote every 10 years, a simple yes or no, by villagers. Do you want us to expand or not? Yes or no? And go from there, instead of what I consider to be environmental rape, doing this. This is the village of Chitty Chatty, right next to a turnpike that looks like this. This should be, people should be more important than profits, but out here it's the other way around. So we're going to talk about rape, and yes, people need to make money. Yes, things need to grow and progress forward, but we need to have a thinking solution around it instead of just bulldozing everything down. This is Eastport. This is the new holy grail of everything out here. This is what it looked like building. Not a tree in sight. This is Eastport, the map for it, with this huge lake that they made. Olympia Rec Center. Again, these rec centers out here. This comes right from the Daily Sun, the Enfield Rec Center, the Grange area, and the Blanchard area. And this doesn't have any life to it at all. Is this what people want? To buy a $500,000 house, have a $50,000 bond, and live in an area like this? I don't understand. This should be thought of, at least how to be about planning, in my opinion. So, and the way I see it is that we're somewhat lobotomized out here with running circuses, playing corn toss and bingo games, while this kind of stuff goes on. And it's we really live in a Savannah scrub where there are 130 subdivisions. Just number the divisions instead of playing games with names that don't exist. How about names that are more honest, like materialism, cash only, greed, Saint Nowhere, overconsumption, sterile, turnpike? I gotta go right down Megacin, and some of these things, some of these communities are within 100 yards of the turnpike, and you just have a wall there. Who wants to live like that? Not only that, it's not good for your health to live by something like that. Like, I can hear the trucks rolling down the turnpike when I'm right next to these things. This is about out-of-touch administrators that want to pass on their DNA and playing He-Man and the Masters of the Universe with what's going on, the way I see it. About entitlement and arrogance, and about ego and entitlement. This is a little bit about blight. This was Breezewood, Pennsylvania, that used to look like this and now looks like this. And this is very reminiscent of Leesburg. We've all gone down 441, and it looks ugly as sin like this. How many times are you supposed to see strip malls? How many times? We're going to go on now to air pollution. I'm sorry, air pollution. And it kills in the United States 200,000 people. Why is that important to me? You know, was it some pedantic subject? No. My grandfather had emphysema. My mother-in-law had COPD, and my wife has asthma. But it kills 200,000 people a year in the United States. And COVID has killed 1 million people in the United States, and we get all uptight about that, but in 5 years, we have enough air pollution to kill 1 million people, or affect 1 million people. And this is unacceptable to have this. This is what's going on right now. This is before the COVID restrictions in India, and this is after when they had the restrictions. It's all clear about that. Regarding heat, we've had almost 500,000 people have died relating heat deaths. In France alone, it was 32,000 from a 7-year period, and the last 10 years have been the warmest on record. Heat affects us, and it's not good for people. They don't have air conditioning in France. You go there, they have regular summers. They don't need them, but it's getting warmer there, for instance. And the same thing in Zurich. They've had 1,700 heat deaths. And Greece has led the way with this, particularly in Zurich, Switzerland here. And there's a climate inequality where 1% of the world's population produce 16% of global emissions. And that contributes to a lot of heat stress deaths. So a lot of people who have a lot of money are spending an awful lot of excess energy to do all this that requires this to go on. The most polluted cities in the world are this, but this is just a graph. I'd rather take it to the world's most worst place to live, which is northwest Russia, right here in the northern part of it. It smells iron out here, and the rivers, it just dumps in the rivers, which are red, right here from the iron oxide, out here in Russia. Actually, living out here is a chemical dump. And you live 10 years shorter than what you would really live. In Russia, they only live to 66 years, that's the average. But out here in Northwest, they live to 55 years. Looking like this. It's a toxic, closed-off city on the edge of the world. This is smelting iron oxide out here, which makes this city contribute more sulfur dioxide than even volcanoes around the world, even like Mount Etna, which is active, by the way, into these volcanoes with sulfur dioxide pollution. So what to do about this? I've been complaining all along and telling you the worst case scenarios and telling you about doom and gloom. So what can you do about it? Well, you can support legislation to elect civic leaders about environmentalism. And you can do all politics is local. You can go to these meetings. On a personal level, I went to these meetings, and it wasn't a disaster for me because I went to the community development district for a personal problem I had. However, I went there, and I didn't know he had 3 minutes to speak. And the people that were supposed to be listening were texting. On top of that, the issues are predetermined already. They already know what's going to be brought up, and they already have an answer. I couldn't even hear the answer from the people, and my wife was with me to back this up. Couldn't even hear the answer from these people. It was all predetermined. Your feelings are valid? I don't think so. It's the way things are run by controlling administrators out here who have their hands on everything on a personal level. So I say, why not just do something different? Why not pay your amenity fees in pennies? That'd be my way of handling this, if you're so upset about something. I haven't, but that's possible. We're trying to find out solutions about what to do about this. We talked about solar power and solar energy. You can support this, although the current administration is denying solar power as well as wind power. This doesn't work. This should have worked, and it doesn't. This is solar power. We're getting to this in California, where all these mirrors are lined up to one central source. But now this is going to be shut down. These solar panels are useless. They're inefficient right now. And this is famous, by the way, doing this, all in one central location. What about turbines and water power? Well, we saw this. This is our picture coming off Scotland. Yet, current administration doesn't want these things. They're ugly. Oh, well, they're a couple hundred miles offshore, about 50 miles offshore. They're being phased out. So solar power currently is being phased out, as well as wind power and turbine power. And yes, I'm a big fan. This is what we saw of Scotland, by the way. That's how big they are compared to a ship. They're huge. So, I'm going to wrap this up right now. How did I get involved in this? And this is directly personal to me. When I was in the fourth grade, I was 10 years old, I went to Growing Mill, which is where they ground grain up back in the day, back in the 1850s, out in Oak Brook, Illinois. And the water there, it had soap suds that were half as tall as the ceiling. They were 8 to 10 feet tall. And I was very upset about that. It made me so upset that I did a report about Keep America Beautiful that Lady Bird Johnson did way back in the 60s about being a litter bug. Many of you people may vaguely remember that. Okay, well, in high school, I got involved in my high school, a first paper and cardboard recycling program. It was so successful that William Ruckelshaus came to our school, Oak Park High School in Oak Park, Illinois, and gave us awards for what we did. This is the start of the whole recycling program that was really important to the EPA. I got an award from the White House. As an idealistic teenager, now as an idealistic older man, I followed this man, James Phillips, who was a grade school biology teacher, and he would pull pranks. He would go down rivers on a canoe and plug up vents, go down to offices and dump paint on on offices and on people's desks. He was upset about what was going on out there in the world. He was very upset. And I like that kind of idea, kind of like being a vigilante, not doing something criminal, but doing something kind of to get people's attention. And he got it. And this is about the Fox River that runs north and south. We live down here in Cook County, not too far from it. And our son went to school right close to it. So now I'm talking about taking action and talking about talking the talk and walking the walk. So, as a father, instead of doing nothing, I wanted to do something with my kids since I stayed home and homeschooled them. So, I got involved in the Illinois River Watch, and we took a training course. We did this for a number of years. That means if you go into streams and wade in them, wade right into them with waders, you will find insects in there like mayflies, larvae, and dragonfly larvae that indicate the health of the stream. And if you collect those, then they can put those on plots and do that. So we got involved in this, and here I am with my two sons doing this kind of work, seeing these kind of amphibious water river little creatures in there. And when they did this, we sent in our results to them, but more importantly, I had them write a how-to, which is what kids do, like how-to things, how to do this, how to collect insects and monitor streams. And they did that, and they were published as in grade school with the Young Entomologist Society. We also work with invasive plants cleanup in our area, getting rid of invasive plants, meeting once a month, going into the wooded areas and knocking things down, not just for a few months, but for 5 and 6 years. And yeah, I got poison ivy to prove it. Yeah. And we also work with this man, Don Harmon, stuffing envelopes for him. All these volunteer things that we did, invasive plants, working with him, and this, and writing things, got my kids into the top high schools. But it's fine to get into the top high schools, but what about the money behind it? Isn't that the most important thing? Can't afford it, but your kid's smart? So we got offers too good to refuse, and that's why we're able to put them in these schools and then for us to retire early. That was our plan, doing this. And in addition, they were in Time for Kids. These are my two boys. This is Colton and Mrs. Grant. Here they are monitoring streams in the Des Plaines River, and here we are pouring things out. I'm with them taking this picture. And we traveled for 13,000 miles on our bikes because we knew that every mile that we went, we saved a pound of carbon dioxide from going into the air, and this was 25 years back. And we went 100 days, quite a number of years, without using the car. Take our bikes in the morning, go out to library, study, and then go to the pools on our bikes, have lunches at a park. Those are the kind of days that we wanted to have Tom Sawyer days without using a car. And this is what we got involved in, because they knew all this too. And no, they don't get involved in it right now in their lives, but this is what makes a difference, is doing something about it. So when you see a talk given something about climate change, when you see a talk, ask that person, instead of some pedantic lecture, what have you done about it, instead of giving these boring talks? What have you done? So I say be stewards of the land, give a hoot, don't pollute, have your outdoor manners show, and make a difference, and thank you. That is what I wanted to say. Thank you.